This video is so exciting because I love fall and this is just perfect. So here we go. I'm gonna be giving you guys all of the books that I want to read in the fall. There's a list of like 17 books that I am planning to read this fall. I'm considering fall to be the months of September, October, and November. So that's what I say when I mean fall. So I'm not going to be reading all these books in 1 month, obviously, and I'm going to be reading other books along with these books. So these are just kind of like my themed books, you want to say, for these months. Because in fall, I just absolutely love reading dark academia, and a lot of these books are dark academia or witchy. I also like fantasy in the fall too, like witchy fantasy, a little bit different than like fairy fantasy. And I also really just like a little bit of horror in there, a little bit of thriller. So it's gonna kind of be a mix of all those things. I have, like I said, like 17 books I want to share. I don't have all of them with me, so a few of them I might have to just talk about. I won't have a physical copy of them yet. I did order them though, because I'm crazy like that. To start off really strong, I'm gonna be talking about a book that I've owned for a long time, but have not gotten to yet, called Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. So I heard about this book last fall, and I never got to it. Well, Jody on YouTube, if you know who I'm talking about, I will link her down below. She talked about this book and really liked it, and her friend Kat also really liked this book. And it's just a novel, so it's not a series or anything like that. You can one and done. Okay, so basically this book is about somebody named Emery Blackwood and her best friend. Yes, so her best friend is found murdered, and the guy that she is in love with was accused of murdering her. So she goes to this place and she is all of a sudden wrapped up in all these magical happenings, and she realizes that things are going on around her on this, I don't know if it's an island. Yes. So basically she's on this island and things are happening, lots of magic, and I don't know if witches are involved, but I think that it's kind of like murder solving. She's solving her best friend's murder, but there's lots of magic involved. So this feels like a perfect book for fall for me because I just love witchy magic in the fall. It's just perfect. And because it is a novel, I'm not committing to a lot, and I've heard people rave about it, and I think it's just a really interesting story. Not really a concept I've ever heard of before, so that's exciting too. This is gonna be one of the ones I read soon. Next, I have a classic for the fall that I cannot believe I haven't ever read before. I'm sad about it too, guys, so don't judge me, but The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I've never read it, which is crazy. So basically this is set in New England. It is a dark academia story, a psychological thriller, very just engrossed in that dark academia world. So I've heard amazing things. I read The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, and I really liked it. I like the writing quite a bit. So this has been like a long time coming for me, and I'm finally gonna read it this fall. Probably very soon, because I cannot wait. I just think it's gonna be everything I could ever want. So now I'm going on to Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Marrow. I heard about this from a friend actually, and she talked really highly about this book. She read it last summer, and I remember thinking, woo, that's a monster. But the idea behind it, as she was telling me, it just sounds amazing. So basically it's set in England in the 1800s, and it's about a young boy who finds another young boy or another young person with magical powers, magical abilities, and they team up with this other person and they go on this journey, and it is basically about their journey. And I think there's a lot of magic involved. I don't know if it's really scary. Yeah, I think it is. It says it's haunting, tense. That's what the blurbs in the back are saying. So I think this is just a very anticipated one for me, because I like old England, old London settings. I think that's very fall. Like, come on. So and it's such a beautiful book. I just cannot wait to dive into it. I don't know if this is a standalone or if there is going to be another one written. I have no idea. It is a novel, so sorry. Yes, standalone. Sounds very magical, but on the haunting, not so like whimsical magical, more on like the scary magical side. So that's what I want. That's 3 so far. Okay, so kind of on a different vein is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is a YA thriller. This is the first one in a series. Yes. I know there's a sequel, and the sequel is called One of Us is Next. So this is basically a murder mystery. Young kids in high school, 5 kids are accused of a murder and then they try to solve it. So basically murder mystery. And hopefully I didn't just butcher that. Hopefully that's actually what this is about. I've read one other YA thriller and I liked it. It was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And that's the only other YA thriller I've ever read. So I'm excited to read another one. I really liked A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I never read the sequel, but I did read the first one and liked it. So this will be interesting for me. I don't know how much I'll like it. If I love it, then I might read the sequel, but if I don't, I might just end it here. But I've had this on my shelf for a while and I feel like it was time to pick it up. Just because I feel like I need a little bit of a break between like adult fantasy, adult dark academia, and a little bit of YA thriller. Cleanse the palate a little bit. That's what I'm hoping this does for me. So if you haven't heard of this, look this one up because I've heard great things about this one. I have Bunny on my list by Mona Awad. This book, so basically it's about a girl who goes to college and she gets invited to go into this sorority called the Bunnies, and they call each other Bunny. And it turns from just like a college story into a horror thriller story. I don't know when the change happens. I don't know how the change happens, but I do know that it develops into something pretty freaky from what I've heard. And I know it's a very strange book. I've had this on my shelf for like a year now, and I tried to pick it up last April, but it just wasn't the time. I am such a mood reader, and at that time I'd been really into romantic fantasy, so this was not what I wanted to read at the moment at all, because there's zero romance in it. Just a bunch of craziness. So, and it's a really short little read, so I figured if I'm gonna read a thriller horror in fall, I might as well read this since it is a school setting and I'm all about academia in the fall, as I've said 12 million times in this video. So I feel like this was like the perfect time. I don't even know if I'll like it. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it. I know there's a lot of humor and like dark humor and just craziness in this book. This I will definitely, if I end up finishing this book and getting through it, I know I will talk about it in a video because I'm gonna have to. Look out for my opinion on that one. Moving right along. This is a book that I'm definitely gonna read in October, probably around Halloween. I kind of have it planned out because I'm a crazy person, but The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is one that you probably have heard of. It's a big fall book because it's about a magic traveling circus that only appears at night. You don't know where it goes the next day, disappears during the day. And I think there's a love story that goes on in this. I think there is a rivalry that goes on in this, and I just think the concept of a traveling circus is very strange, and I've never read a book like that before. So I think that's what I'm really most excited about, is just figuring out or finding out how this author writes the story. I just want to know what this is about, what happens, and I think that there are people who love this book. So it's time that I finally picked it up and gave it a go. I'm excited for the romance, and I think that might be very cool. And you know that movie that's about the circus that has Zac Efron in and Zendaya? I cannot think of the name of it right now, but it's gonna make me want to watch that movie. I have a feeling. If this is good, it's gonna make me want to watch that movie. And then right on to a weird one. This is probably a book that most people haven't heard of because I had never heard of it either. It's called 7 Faceless Saints by M.K. Lobb. So this was in my Fairy Loot box, I think back in like April or May. It was, I think, oh, I don't know, I could be so wrong. I want to say it was my YA subscription box. Could be so wrong about that. But I decided to put this on my fall list because, well, first off, tell me it doesn't scream fall and Halloween. And it is a romance. It is. So there's a little bit of like fantastical romance going on in this, and I know that it is about war, and I mean, look at those end pages. Oh my god. So basically these two people have to team up to hunt down this killer, and I guess they used to be lovers and now they're reunited and they have to work together. So kind of like a forced proximity, but they used to be lovers and then maybe their relationship is going to be rekindled. I don't know. The rating on GoodReads for this is not very high, and there's not a lot of ratings for it. I think there's like 500 ratings or something. So I feel like I can't really trust what people are saying on GoodReads because not a lot of people own this book or even know about this book, so I'm just not really sure. I think that I need to form my own opinion about it, and that's why I want to read it now. It's a short little read. I think it's definitely a standalone, so I will definitely be talking about my thoughts about this and giving you guys the real opinion after I read it, but for right now, it just feels like a holiday book. Or a fall book. I don't think I would read it any other time of the year. So, on to another one. Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've never read an R.F. Kuang book before. I do own a copy war, so I have the ability to read an R.F. Kuang book, and I haven't. This is set in the 1800s. It is about an orphan brought to London by a professor. He trains in all these languages. I know this is just very dark academia, and I know it has a lot of academic references. I know there's a lot of like thick topics talked about, and it's kind of like a thicker writing style, if that makes sense to you. And when I mean by thick, I just mean like hard to digest, like you'd have to read it slowly. It's not like a YA book where you can just read and it just flows in and you like know what you're talking about. I think this is gonna be more of like a sit down, really like process what I'm reading kind of book to get the full impact of the story. People rave about this, and I know that I think I will like it. I think that it's gonna scratch my dark academia itch even more than some of the books here, because I think it is purely academia and maybe some magic. I'm really not sure. It's just really about the pursuit of magic, and I think it has a lot to do with like this Chinese orphan boy and just his story, and I just have heard so many amazing things about it, so I want to give it a go and give it a try. And maybe it won't be my cup of tea. I know that this is, some people thought that this was just too much to read, and I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it. I don't know enough about it, so I'm gonna go into it really not knowing a lot, and I think I'm just gonna form my own opinion. But this is just another good dark academia recommendation that I've heard. So now onto a more witchy book, The Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I could have completely just butchered that, but that's okay, that's what I think it is. So basically this is about this girl who is working as a scholar, and then she discovers this ancient text, accidentally kind of opens the door, and the magical world of these witches starts to come back to life. And this is just the first one in a trilogy. So A Discovery of Witches, and then there is Shadow of Night, and the third one is something about Earth, and I can't remember what it is. But yeah, so there's 3 of these books, and I own 2 of them. So if I really love this one, I will go on to the next one and the next one after that. So this will be like a commitment. If I decide that I really like this trilogy, I will want to read the whole thing, but I'm gonna just start out with it and give it a go. I love the idea of like witches coming to life. It kind of reminds me of like Hocus Pocus, even though it's probably not, it's probably way deeper and more philosophical than that. But yeah, I think that this is gonna be cool. I think they might have a little bit of dark academia in it as well, so that's just great. 2 things in one. And I think it also is a little bit romantic, so I think there's like a little bit of a love story in there too. So probably very much a subplot, but can't go wrong with the cute little romance in there. I also want to read The Witch Collector, which is, I don't know if you can see that. This is a Witch Walker novel. There is, I think, 5 books in the series. Yes, it's gonna be 5 books in the series. So basically, from what I'm gathering, this is a story about, so basically it's about this person who is kind of going against the Witch Collector, and this person wants to kill the Witch Collector and the Frost King. So I guess there's like a little bit of a rebellion story, but yeah, basically just, I think it has a lot to do with magic. It's very fantastical, and I don't really know much about it. I can't really get a good gist from like what I'm reading right now, but it has almost a 4-star on GoodReads. I've heard good things. I think this is going to be a book that I read if I get to it. I'm not like super set on reading it, but because I could read it more in like the winter time, but I do think I want to try. Okay, for a big one, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I have been wanting to read this book for so long. People have been raving about it recently. So basically this is about 2 young rival journalists, and it says on here, it is Shadow in the Bone meets lore. So I think it's just very like these 2 students or these 2 writers are just really like trying to fight this war against these gods, and it's just kind of their story. And I think there's like a little bit of a love story that goes on. I don't really know much about it, but I just know that people are really enjoying it. And it has a 4.3 on GoodReads, so I just feel like it's a very good fall book because it has the fantastical, they're journalists, they have like a cute love story, and I feel like that's just like a very cute book to read in the fall. So I'm looking forward to that one. The last one I'm going to talk about is, I don't know if that was even all 17, but this is where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to read If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. So I think this is more of like a mystery thriller book, which I need to get another one in there because all I have pretty much so far is just Bunny. And I want another one in there to kind of like break it up a little bit. So this is about somebody named Oliver who served 10 years in jail, gets out, and meets the detective that put him in jail. And the murder that he was put in jail for, he may or may not have committed. So basically he's going to go back and go through the story of why he got convicted of this murder and what really happened that day and what really went down. Basically, this is just like, they start out, he just got out of jail after serving for this crime, and then we go back and we get to find out if this crime actually was committed by who they thought that it was committed by and what actually happened that crazy day. So I think it has a lot to do with like these actors and what they may or not have done in this murder and what they may have not have committed and just craziness. So I am just really excited to read that because I've heard really good things. The rating is a 4.2 on GoodReads, and I think it's just going to be a good little thriller to kind of break up my other books that I'm reading, which is so much dark academia. So hopefully you guys got some good recommendations from that. I just really have a lot of fall books that I've been wanting to read, so I knew I had to make a video. I don't know how many books that was, and it had been like 15. I'm not for sure. But yes, hopefully you saw something that you liked or you wanted to read and you've never heard of before, or if you have, I convinced you to read it. Yeah, so let me know if you end up reading any of these books, because I definitely will want to know, because I'll be reading them, fingers crossed, unless I just like go completely into a book slump, which would be terrible. So yeah, let me know, because I would love to hear about it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.